Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sail and Chat episode 19. And I am going to, hopefully, in this not too long of an episode, update you all about a bunch of stuff. Hopefully. Alright, so first things first, you probably noticed that I haven't uploaded anything for a couple of days, and that's because I just moved. And I moved on the 2nd of July, and I was initially thinking that, I'm going to move, it's all going to be good, I'm just going to move everything to a new place and get back online and get back to work. Yeah, things haven't really gone that smoothly on that end. First things first, moved into the new place and realized that it was an absolute disaster. The previous tenant of the place, I think, judging by what I saw, probably hasn't done any sort of really good amount of cleaning for maybe a few years, because boy, there were some interesting amounts of grease and grime in places I would never imagine. But yeah, lots of grease, lots of grime, lots of dirt, scuff marks, all that kind of wonderful goodies. Yeah, and like food in the most odd places that you can imagine in a place. And so basically, moved in on the 2nd. The movers did their job. They left everything and then started cleaning. And I've pretty much been cleaning for the last few days straight. And I think I finally managed to get a decent amount of the place cleaned. At least I think it's somewhat livable. So, one thing out of the way. And then, of course, well, no internet. Yep, the transfer for the internet apparently was going to take about a week and a half, I think, or something to complete, because I called them and they scheduled it. I think it was because of some sort of holiday or something like that. So I will officially get internet back on at least right now, I'll have it back on the 8th, which is the Friday. So once the internet comes back, I will get back to work and trying to, do as many of the replays that people have been sending me in the last couple of days. Don't worry, I have saved patch 0.5.7 client, so if you have a replay from a little bit sort of before this current patch, you've sent me that replay, don't worry, I will still be able to watch it. Okay, so that is life circumstances and situations out of the way. Let's go and talk about Know Your Ship episode. So the patrons voted, and they want the Alaska-class battle cruiser as the next Know Your Ship. And again, like I said, when I get my internet back on the 5th, I will get straight to work on that as well, and I will try to have that done ASAP. Alright, so moving on to World of Warships related things, the most recent look at the front page says that German battleships are actually coming soon. My guess is probably the next patch, the next major patch at least, so 0.5.9, as we're on 0.5.8 right now. So my guess is that's when the patch, will come out. That'll probably be maybe sometime in August, who knows? And we'll probably see German battleships then. Don't really know too much about them, besides knowing now which ships go where, and I'm probably most excited to see the Tier 9 and Tier 10 ships, the H-39, the H-41, I believe. It's going to be interesting because we already know what the Tier 8 looks like. We have the Tirpitz, so we already know that. The ship that actually interests me the most, and I'll talk about actually ship characteristics in a second. I guess I'll do it now. German battleships, my guess is that they're probably going to be pretty fast. They're going to be good brawlers. They're going to probably have a decent rate of fire. In fact, their rate of fire is probably going to be better. Penetration is probably maybe a little bit not as great as some of the other nations. But again, rate of fire should make up for that, at least to some degree. They might pack torpedoes, because that might be a thing of the German battleships. They're designed for that brawling and use torpedoes up close kind of role. Who knows? Their secondaries are probably going to be pretty good. A might be a bit on the average side. And yeah, it's just me guessing about what they might be, the sort of general characteristics. But out of all the German ships, out of all the ones that we've seen in the list, there's one we've actually gotten some data mined data for, and that's the Scharnhorst. And she looks like she's going to be a Tier 7 premium battleship. Although to me she's still a battle cruiser. And we know some of her numbers. And her numbers to me make her a very, very interesting ship. So large HP pool, pretty large HP pool for Tier 7. Armored deck it's alright. Citadel is pretty good. Torpedo protection is okay. But here's where things start to get a little bit more interesting. So she's got a max speed of 30 knots, which will make her the fastest of all the tier 7 battleships. Um, her detectability is okay and all that's fine, but her guns and that speed is interesting because at 30 knots you're going to be you're going to be able to keep up with those cruisers really, really easily. And her guns really allow you to support these cruisers. And not only that, but these guns fire quite a bit faster than traditional battleship guns. And that, I think, is going to make a difference during a cruiser engagement. So her main guns are like these 280 millimeter guns, 20-kilometer firing range, which I think is going to be quite adequate. Reload time is where things get scary, 20 seconds. So if you think about your typical cruiser, which reloads once every 15 seconds, let's say for the heavy cruisers with the 203 millimeter guns, and maybe a bit faster for the ones with the 152s. But this is 280 millimeter shells that are coming at you once every 20 seconds. So if you are a cruiser and you're fighting the ship, it might be harder to swing out, use your rear guns, fire a salvo, and then swing yourself back into an angled bow-on position. It might be really hard to do that. Not only that, there's two other things that I think are interesting. One, her AP shell damage. Her HE shell damage is not great, and everything there is kind of meh. But her AP shell damage, 8700 max, is quite a bit higher than the damage that you're going to get out of heavy cruiser armor piercing. 8700 damage, which is good. High velocity, very high velocity, and 8 degrees of normalization, which means that you're going to be penetrating things at angles that would normally in other ships might cause bounces and stuff like that. But the 8700 damage and the fact that you fire once every 20 seconds, that combination is a pretty scary combination, not only for cruisers. Let's say you were a cruiser and you found a battleship broadside, and so you go to your AP and you fire your AP and you do some penetration damage. But you're only doing like 33% of, let's say, 5,500-ish damage. So that's okay damage. It's not like fantastic, but it's okay damage. But here you're going to have 33% of 8,700 damage. If you land a couple of shells and they just penetrate, you're going to do the equivalent of Citadel hits in damage. So that, I think, is going to be pretty scary. Of course, the determining factor for the Scharnhorst's guns is whether these 280 millimeter guns is going to have a dispersion pattern that's more similar to heavy cruisers or one that's more similar to battleships. Because if she has a dispersion pattern that's more similar to heavy cruisers where they're pretty tight, then watch out, because she is going to be one pretty terrifying ship. And then, of course, moving on, not only does she have these guns that are pretty interesting, she's also got torpedoes. Leave data mind that. She's got torpedoes. And so she's definitely got one of those sort of last-ditch close-up weapons. She's got that. So, yeah, just overall, her AA, I think, was kind of average. I looked at her AA. Her AA scores were all pretty meh. So I think that'll be maybe the German battleship's weaknesses all the way around, is sort of below average AA. But we will have to see, of course, because, again, this is all speculation right now. But it does make for some interesting sort of theory crafting, almost, to see what might happen, right? So at least at, like, Tier 7, if you have these fast battleships or battle cruisers that escort their cruisers and push hard and can keep up with them and lend their guns into that action and, of course, be able to close that range on you, I think that might make for some pretty interesting fights, but we will have to see about that when, of course, the ships actually come into the game. And, of course, now that patch 0.5.8 has landed, we can actually talk a little bit about that as well. Of course, I mean, let's talk about the good things first, because good things are important. So let's talk about things like Bastion Mode, which I think it's a good thing. We're finally getting some sort of differences or something more dynamic gameplay-wise than the traditional capture at this point or capture a couple points. And I think Bastion Mode just adds a little bit additional flavor to it. Although, ideally in the long run, I would like to see something else more as well. Maybe the airfields that you see modeled on the map, maybe those get used for something. Just other things, and just generally add additional flavor, I think, to the game. So that would be helpful. Of course, not only did we get a new mode, but there's a lot of these other changes that happen. I mean, situational awareness now works to the way that I guess most people had expected it to work instead of the way it actually did, which I think is a good change as well. Now that everybody just knows exactly when they're spotted, exactly when they're unspotted, so there's a lot less complaining about, oh, somebody shot me when I was supposedly invisible. That's a good thing. I like the tracer change. Now having the difference between seeing AP and HE, that's a good change as well. So knowing what ships are firing ammunition at you, that's good. The new ribbons, I'm not really fond of their art style though. The art style of the new ribbons is kind of meh. Although the detailed information of the damage counter is fantastic, and pretty much now that with all these things in the game, I don't really need to use mods anymore. I actually feel like most of the things that I ever used from a mod pack is now just built into the game, which is absolutely fantastic. One thing that has started to bother me lately is maps in World of Warships. I'm not sure if it's just me or maybe the rest of you feel this as well, but I feel like a lot of the maps just feel like sort of rehashes of other maps. Like you sort of look at the map and you see the same lump of island sort of in the middle. They all sort of look the same. They all have that sort of same approach to the map design where one map and the other map and another map just looks all sort of the same. And even with the new maps that supposedly we got, when I looked at them, they just sort of felt like another version of maybe Fault Lines or another version of Islands of Ice. It's just all these maps are starting to be, in my opinion, just way too similar. And I'm wondering if I'm the only person seeing this or whether you guys see it as well. And, you know, if so, do you guys have any ideas about what we could do to make the maps just a little bit more different from each other? Or should we just sort of head with the more and more modes of combat? So where, like, instead of just having standard domination, we have things like Bastion, and then maybe in the future, like airfield capture, or I don't know, something different, some additional game mode. Maybe that'll add flavor, and we are just okay with the maps the way they are. Not sure. That could be something interesting to think about as well. And finally, two more things I have to talk about sort of before I take off all of you, because I've got to go back and continue to unpack and get the place ready to go. And see, I did this late and that's my fault. I should have gotten to this earlier. But there is a game on Steam called Windward, which I've played like 5 hours of, prior to the move. And if you've ever played like Sid Meier's Pirates and you wanted a game that was like that, with maybe like updated graphics, maybe not the dancing and those kinds of not so awesome mechanics, and you sort of wanted to have that sort of sailing game where there's trading, questing, and maybe even collecting loot and fighting pirates and whatnot, you can definitely look into a game called Windward. I mentioned the name earlier, didn't I? Okay. Anyways, I managed to get it during the Steam sale for like $4, although right now I think for like normal it's like $11. But if you're interested in the game, you should definitely go check it out. I played a couple hours. I think it's a fun game, and apparently it has both single player, which is really really chill, and there's of course multiplayer as well. Although multiplayer, I think you just play on some random servers and you do stuff. Yes, don't ask me. I haven't really played all the way to the end yet, so I'm not really sure what the end game looks like. But it does seem promising so far, and it is something that maybe you'll see a slightly more detailed review for sometime in the near future. I'm not really sure. And then, of course, there is one last piece of news, and I sort of forgot it. Oh, I'm getting old. My memory's starting to turn into crap. What was this I was going to talk? Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So there we go. Yeah. Acer America has actually reached out to me, and they're going to send me, I believe, a monitor and a desktop to review in the next little while. I don't know how and when and how long it's going to take for it to get here, but they're going to ship it out to me, and I'm going to review it, and then of course I'm just going to make a video about it and what I think, and they're pretty much telling me to just go ahead and do whatever the heck I want, and do it in however which kind of format I want. And at the end of all of it, I have a choice to obviously decide to either keep it or return it. And if I keep it, I have to do a series of sponsored videos. Of course, if I return it, I don't have to do anything else. I think I'm most likely just going to return it because I've said this before. I don't want this channel to head into that super commercialized territory where every video has like a sponsorship thing going on. And it was the reason why I started the whole Patreon thing anyway. So most likely what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send it back, and we'll just, have a review, and so be that, right? So be it. Jesus, I can't speak English today. All right, and then of course, let's go and talk about one last thing, because I remember somebody asking me a question about not having that Freedom camo on the Texas. I do believe that is coming in the next little while, so if you don't see it right away, don't worry about it. Also, of course, Arizona went on sale, and Wargaming Arizona sale. I mean, I like the fact that they offer just the ship and a port slot for a pretty reasonable price. And then they offered it with like some other goodies that's still a pretty reasonable price. And then they offered a package where they had that special commemorative flag, and it was like $75. And I just went, oh, Wargaming, couldn't you have figured out a slightly better system for that? I mean, I really, really wish you came up with something, just a little bit of a better system, and maybe that flag could be just a little bit more. I don't know. I wasn't super big fan of how they limited the flight to deluxe package and made it like $75 or something, which is incredibly expensive. But I can only express my opinions, and Wargaming will do what Wargaming wants, I guess. And I think that's all I have for all of you today. So of course, if you have any questions, do try to leave those in the comment section below. I will try my best to get back to you about them, but it might take me another day or two, just because the internet doesn't officially arrive until 2 days from now. So I'm going to be uploading this on a 1 megabit per second connection, so it'll be up whenever this video goes up. And of course, I also have to credit this replay to Tanker Hopkins, who sent me in a Campbelltown replay. Ugh, still not convinced by the Campbelltown, by the way. I just feel like the Torps reload way too slowly for my liking, and it just doesn't have enough guns to make it a redeeming ship in my eyes. But it certainly doesn't stop Tanker from doing a pretty darn good job in their Campbelltown. And there's this result screen, so check it out. Really, really solid amounts of damage, good experience, good amount of base experience, and yeah, you can't really argue with Double Strike, the high caliber Kraken Confederate. You can't argue with that. So good job, Tanker. And of course, folks, I do have to run on all of you again. There's still more things to be done, and hopefully I'll be up and running in the next day or two. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, if you've got questions, leave those in the comment section below, but the response might be a little bit delayed. Anyhow, folks, take care, have a good one, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of you again soon.